2020 is coming to a close, thank God, finally. And I have decided that I would like to start doing some in-year lists here. I wasn't apparently intending to do an honorable mentions list, but I decided, you know what, I would like to talk about a lot of the other great records to come out this year that weren't as good and they weren't top 10 material. Because I'm not going to do a top 50 albums like Sean C. I think Anthony also does top 50. A lot of people do top 50. I'm not going to do a top 50 albums of the year because I didn't listen to 50 albums this year. I mean, I listened to 50 albums. Actually, in total, I listened to 60 albums. So in that way, I cannot make a top 50 because number 50 would be some like mediocre album. It's just I've listened to too many records. In fact, the way it would work is every album that wouldn't make that top 50 list would be every album that doesn't make that top 50 list would be in my 10 worst of the year if you think about it. But I still have a couple records I do want to get through this year. I do want to listen to the Blueface album, Find the Beat. I want to listen to that because I heard it's really bad and I want to hear it for my worst list. And I just have to hear Whole Lotta Red. I finally listened to the other two Playboi Carti albums this week. They were so terrible. I'm sorry. What Dial It sucks. It sucks. But now we're here with honorable mentions. These are just the albums this year that I felt like were really good, but I don't think were top 10 material. Just saying there were 10 amazing albums this year, so everything on this list can still be amazing. They can still be great, and some of them are going to be a lot better than others. I'm just going to go over those really important, great albums this year that didn't quite make my list of the top 10 best albums of the year, but they're all still really impressive albums overall. I'm not going to talk about every album. I think there's a couple Griselda things that just, I don't feel like I can talk about them, because I feel like they're just so they're there. They're Griselda. I mean, you already know what they sound like. I think I want to point out like Lulu and Real Bad Boldy would both be in this honorable mentions area, but I'm not going to talk about either because I feel like both of them are such small condensed projects that I put them as high as they were because I like the production and sound and everything. But I also think both of them both Conway and Boldy had massively better, especially Boldy, massively better projects to come down the line. But let's start things off with the first record I'll talk about. I'm going to scroll down and see if that seems like a good spot. I'm going to start with the record to come out of Dreamville this year besides the deluxe for Dreamville. Spillage by Spillage Village. I thought this was a really creative record in my opinion. Was it great? Not really, but I still thought there was a ton of great verses, a ton of great versatility from every rapper coming out of this album. Their flows were nice, the game was on point, everything. Overall, I think this could have been a pretty weak record, but I feel like every single rapper kind of gave it their all. I like the production a lot of points. My issue with this album more just became, I felt like there were a lot of tracks that didn't really hit home for me, but I still really love a lot of tracks. I think both Baptize, Happy, and End of Days are some of my favorite songs of the year. Overall, I thought this was a pretty great record. Is it amazing? Not really, but I still think everybody did great, and my God, Jid killed every verse he was on. Next, I have the Pop Smoke posthumous record, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, the first album I ever reviewed on this channel. This was a really freaking solid record. I think this has some of my favorite, this is probably the most popular hip-hop album of the year, and it has some of my favorite just throw out singles of the year. I thought Gangstas was great, The Woo, For the Night, all those singles that really came out of this, I really enjoyed them. I feel like as a Pop Smoke debut album, this was really solid. It had really great flows, and while it isn't the best posthumous record of the year, not even close, I think this is a fantastic record, and I think Pop Smoke and all the features and everything about this came to make this celebratory album, to celebrate an artist who didn't really get to really live out his destiny. He had so much potential, and unfortunately, I don't know if we ever really got to hear the full of that, but we did get Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, a really great record. I will also mention Meet the Woo 2 was pretty great too, but I picked this one as my Pop Smoke record of the year. Next, we have The Goat by Polo G. Polo G, last year with Die a Legend, kind of came across to me as this throwaway rapper who was kind of just another face in trap, but thought they were way better than they were. But The Goat proved to me that he actually has a lot more versatility than I thought he did. There are so many moments in this album where every track feels like it kind of lives and breathes on its own. And like D&D I thought was great. 21. I also think, honestly, I'm going to make a top 50 best tracks of the year, and you will undoubtedly see Wishing for a Hero. That was a great use of Tupac. Changes is one of my favorite songs ever. He used that very nicely. Overall, while The Goat didn't blow me away. I was really impressed by Polo G's versatility, sound, and styles on this, and it was a lot better than Die a Legend, in my opinion. Next, I have both sides of Music to Be Murdered By. Side A and Side B, I think both were really solid records. While they both have their low points, both of them actually are far better than some of Eminem's previous work in recent times. They both are way better than Revival, and they're both better than Kamikaze, in my opinion. Side A, to me, had a ton of interesting instrumentals. There was a lot of meaning in a lot of tracks, like Leaving Heaven, Darkness, and Godzilla. And overall, I thought the feature game was great. My only issue with the record is I did think that tracks like Farewell, Into Deep kind of dragged it down. But I thought Side B, while not having those moments like Leaving Heaven, Darkness, and Godzilla, which are always the three I bring up because it's the songs I love from that album, I still think that Side B had a ton of great tracks, like Discombobulated, and it had very little low points in it. This record, I think, isn't even a week old yet, but I really loved what he did with Side B, and I thought it was a really great Eminem record. It's one of the better Eminem records in recent times. Next, I have Limbo by Amine. I reviewed this album when it came out. I really enjoyed it when it came out, and I still really enjoy it. I have found that really varied and no tracks on this have been like on replay for me. Roots, I've replayed once or twice. I think Pressure on My Palms is a really solid track too, but it isn't on as replay as I hoped it would. But I still think this was such a solid move from Amine. It was better than Good For You, which was a really good record in my opinion as well. I really loved what he was able to do with this. It had so much entertaining flows, styles, voices, and I think Amine could have really botched this, but he did really nicely with it. There's a ton of great features as well. Overall, I was really hyped for this record when it was coming out, and I think it actually really lived up for that hype. It's probably my favorite Amine record at this point. Next, we have Descendants of Cain by Ka. I don't think I really talked about Ka much, and most of the reason why is because I don't have much to say on this man's music. I kind of listened to every album of his, and I kind of just was like, those are really good. I really positive reviewed all of them, but I kind of put them away because I was like, man, do I feel like I don't really understand it, and I still can't say I understood Descendants of Cain to every extent, but the production is really peaceful and nice. I really just love how, I don't know how to describe this music. It sometimes even stresses me out thinking about it. There's something about Descendants of Cain that has a sound, it has his voice, it has a style that just is unbeatable in my opinion. He did great with this record. It's a fantastic record. And we're probably in my top 20 favorite albums of the year, because next I have the best West Side Gun record of the year, Pray for Paris. I did think Who Made the Sunshine was good, but Pray for Paris was so much better. This was a great record in my opinion. One of the best Griselda was able to drop this year. Flows on point, on game, every track. The lyricism from West Side Gun and features like Tyler the Creator and Joey Badass. Also, you get the other Griselda members like Benny the Butcher, whom is a great rapper in my opinion. And then you also got the fantastic West Side Gun. No. Conway the Machine on these. You have a really solid Griselda record in my opinion. I feel like this is probably my favorite West Side Gun record I've heard. I haven't listened to every West Side Gun record, but I thought this was a pretty fantastic album, and I think he did very nicely with what he was given. Unlocked, or no, actually I'm not there yet. I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to go to the next. Actually, another Griselda record, The Price of Tea in China by Boldy James and the Alchemist. Boldy James and the Alchemist came together to create a fantastic record in my opinion. Not the best from either of them this year, but Price of Tea in China has really good features and flows and styles in the same way that I really liked Pray for Paris. I feel like this album is just really true to itself. Boldy James' voice this year was fantastic. His whole style on across every record he had done, Real Bad Boldy and Manager and McNichols, he just has such a great voice in my opinion. It's such a creative voice that's going to go really far in the future, especially when you look at records like Price of Tea in China, which are just fantastic. Freddie Gibbs' verse on this one was great too. Next I have The Allegory by Royce da 5'9". This was not the only record this year of a 2000s rapper whom tried to seek making this really deep album later this year, and everybody really downplayed it 6 out of 10, but I listened to it and I was like, oh my god, that was great. While I don't think that The Allegory kills it at every stance, there is so much meaning to everything on this album. I love the way he's able to discuss themes like racism, all the just those modern ideas. It's really entertaining in that own way, and it feels like a lot of these tracks are not focused on being bangers like on Book of Ryan. It doesn't feel in any vein like Book of Ryan, the last Royce 5'9" record. It feels a lot more like it's focused on telling these themes, these messages. And Hero is one of my favorite tracks of the year, so I gotta give it to The Allegory for the Hero. Next I have Unlocked by Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. I was gonna say that earlier and then I forgot about it. Denzel Curry has had almost every single year releasing another great project, and I cannot wait to hear the man's next album because this was fantastic. 17 minutes of pure energy and lyricism from Kenny and Denzel. The beat switches, these flows, the very experimental sound of this really was entertaining in my opinion. I need to watch the short film for this because I feel like that would improve the record for me. Yeah, despite how much I already loved Unlocked as a record, I thought he just did really nicely with what he was given. Extinction Level Event 2, The Wrath of God by Busta Rhymes is the most underrated record of the year, in my opinion. I think there are other records that came out that just nobody really talked about, but so few people listen to this. And then I went out to listen to it after I'd heard the single Look Over Your Shoulder, which is one of my favorite tracks of the year. I went to find this album, and my God, it is a fucking great album. The flows, the features on this are so good. You have no idea how many of the best are on this. Like, I know Kendrick already has his feature on this. Anderson .Paak. Who is it? I know there's like many Wu-Tang members. I think Old Dirty Bastard. And it's RZA or GZA is on this too. Mariah Carey's on this. Overall, Extinction Level Event 2 was a really overlooked, really thrown out record, despite the fact that I think Busta Rhymes did fantastic with what he was given on Extinction Level Event 2. I have not heard any other Busta Rhymes record at this point, but I thought this was a great start. So hopefully I will get some better records in the future for this man, because he's a legend, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect to get this great of a record from him. This was a really solid record. He's released like 2 deluxes now for it, so I guess I might check those out one day. Next I have Detroit 2 by Big Sean. Big Sean has really, really improved over the past many years. We heard very low points for him in the early 2000s, like Finally Famous, Hall of Fame, both just really mediocre records. Dark Side of Paradise sucked in my opinion, but I thought with I Decided he turned a new leaf of making a far more, there's less skips on that. It was a lot more deep, it was a lot more, felt real to him, and it felt like he was trying to get his own voice in the game. And Detroit 2, he really brings his own voice out there. While still Big Sean sometimes is the less interesting part of some songs in here, there were so many bangers on this album, like Guard Your Heart, Dawn Life, Wolves, what's the one, Deep Reverence with Nipsey Hussle. Man, he did great with this record. Really good, giving great devotion and dedication to his hometown. Probably my favorite Detroit record of the year. It might actually be my favorite. No. It's not my favorite record to come out of Detroit, but out of all the records that like dedicate themselves to Detroit, this is my favorite of the year. Next 13, I have an album that came out a week before this. I have King's Disease by Nas. Nas is one of my favorite rappers of all time. Probably my favorite rapper to drop in... Oh, never mind, Eminem. Other than Eminem, my favorite rapper to drop in 2020. But really, at the end of the day, he came through with the best record he's made in probably 18 years. King's Disease was so much better than I thought it was going to be, honestly. The production from Hit Boy across every track was really great, and it kind of brought Hit Boy into his own light. Nas really brings that legendary status to this record, and while he doesn't make the next Illmatic, he makes a really impressive album that feels really condensed, really brief, doesn't feel like it drags on at any point. Has a ton of really great flows on this, features. I thought the... Full Circle, that was a great track with all the Firm people on it. This is a solid record in my opinion. As a huge Nas fan, as Illmatic is my favorite album ever, I have to say this was a really great record in my opinion. Next, I have 2 left. Next record, From King to a God by Conway the Machine. I really thought this would make the end of your list. It didn't. It was close, but it didn't quite make it. From King to a God really is an impressive move from Conway the Machine here. It's his debut album, and I think he couldn't have done better on this. The flows, the lyricism, the really raw aggressiveness that Conway brings on every single track really overall just stood out to me. I feel like in a lot of ways, From King to a God could have been this shaky mixed bag. But at the end of the day, I feel like he really did. I feel like he really brought more creativity, more voice to this than he did on his other Griselda records this year. It felt like such a fantastic just move for the Griselda label. And a lot of people call this the best Griselda record of the year. I will talk about the best Griselda record of the year in my top 10 best albums of 2020. This was close to that list. This is probably like 12. But man, this was a solid record. Conway did great with this. Next, I have number 11. This would almost make my list, but not quite. I have Visions of Bodies Being Burned by Clipping. This was such a good record in my opinion. I still don't know if I liked this more than There Existed an Addiction to Blood. That was one of my favorite records of 2019. I don't think that Visions of Bodies Being Burned is as good. Is it bad? No. Not at all. This was a fantastic record. The production from clipping on this was fantastic. The very, really nice flows across this. Man, the flows are good. The just loud sounds the sound brings to it. It is a horrorcore album at its best. I don't hear very many horrorcore albums this just hard-hitting, entertaining, and lovable. Well, there's no Nothing Is Safe on this, which is a track from the other clipping record. Really amazing track there. Overall, I still think Say the Name is a great record, or Say the Name is a great thing. Great track. 96, another great track too. Still, Vision Bodies Being Burned is very close to my top 10. I thought this was a very great record, very creative record in my opinion, but I still don't think it was quite number 10. I'm very excited to get in my top 10 list very soon. I'm still not quite sure if I want to record the what do we call it? I don't know if I really want to record my because like part of me is like, should I even review the Whole Lotta Red first and then do this? Because Whole Lotta Red will not make my top 10. I can already say that, but we'll see. It'll probably come out afterwards. So see you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye.